Hey, happy Thursday, everybody. It's Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here at WCNC. Welcome into Live Weather Impact. It is a Thursday evening, as I mentioned. Cool conditions. Fall is finally here. It is actually not super cold, but it's actually closer to normal. We've had such a warm fall that I think people are struck by the fact that it feels chilly. The average low this time of year is 47, so being in the 40s in the morning is definitely where we're supposed to be. But this morning, it was cooler than that. We're going to start with your weather impacts, though, because we've got a lot to talk about, actually, weather-wise. Chilly and cool for tomorrow. So we're talking frost in the morning. The weekend, highs only in the 60s, by the way. Morning lows in the 40s. And next week, that's the big story. We're going to talk a lot about this. Huge changes compared to what we've had recently. Let's focus on the forecast tonight. Sunset is coming up here any minute now, actually 6:39. So it's going to be dark here shortly. And once that sun goes down, the temperature is tumbling quick. We'll be down. I think this is a little too warm, actually. I think we'll be in the 30s quicker than this by tomorrow morning. And why do I say that? Because let's look at this morning. Normally, I don't like to show you history, but we'll talk about this morning. We had frost. I had viewers and followers commenting we had frost in Cleveland County, parts of York County, certainly Gaston County. So anytime you're below 40 degrees, and here's the weird thing about frost. It doesn't have to be freezing. Freezing is 32 and lower. We all know that. That's a freeze warning. You can get frost between 33 and 38 degrees. That's the air temperature. You can get a cold surface where frost can form. So the air temperature might be 37, but the surface of your plants or your rooftop or your car top could have frost on it. And certainly that happened in many locations this morning. And because it was that cold already, I fully expect it. We will be just as cold tomorrow morning. And just to give you kind of an illustration of how frost works, frost, it happens at the surface. The air temperature is taken about 5 feet off the ground in a little sheltered thing that we call a Stevenson shelter. It's that kind of white box. That's where they put the thermometer. People often say that the temperature is taken in the shade. It's actually taken in complete darkness because it's the air temperature, not the temperature of the sun. So when it's in that shelter, the temperature there could be 33 to 38 degrees. But if you've ever been outside with a clear sky, where there's radiational cooling, surfaces can cool down. Just like in the sun during the day, how a surface can get hotter than the air temperature, at night when there's clear skies and calm winds, an area in the open can actually cool quicker than the surrounding temperature. We call that radiational cooling. So that can happen to a rooftop, the roof of your car, and definitely plants. That's why plants closer to the house or under a tree, that actually a little bit of protection blocks the radiational cooling and keeps it warmer. Something else you can do tonight, make sure you load up on water. Water your plants heavily tonight because that will certainly help them retain some of the heat from today. So speaking of tonight's lows, I'm going with upper 30s. This would be by far the coolest night of the season so far for Charlotte. And 38 in Charlotte, if that's at the airport, certainly going to see some 34s and 35s in some of the neighborhoods around Charlotte, away from the uptown area where the urban heat island keeps them a little bit warmer. So if you have a wide open area in your yard where there's a garden or plants, that's likely going to see frost. Your roof will likely have some white rooftops coming up tomorrow morning in your neighborhood, so certainly cold enough for that to happen tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow afternoon, it's going to be just like today, sunny. The difference is we may never get to 70. We'll be in the 60s. So definitely a cool fall day, by far the coolest we've seen so far. Now, Tim and I are going to talk about this in a second, but Comet Lemon is still visible tonight. It is beginning to move a little bit in the night sky closer to the west. So the Big Dipper is still kind of a good reference point. There's another big constellation that's close to it, a big bright star called Arcturus. It's kind of easier to see. You can't see it with the naked eye. Remember, use those binoculars, your telescope, your camera. That's the best way to see it. And just to give you a perspective, this was a shot I got last night. I'm going to try to head out there again tonight. This again was, I think, 15-second exposures, like 15 to 20 shots stacked. But you can see it through the camera lens pretty clearly if you zoom in on the right spot and let the camera do the work. It's much better than your eye. It can let a lot more light in, not just like your smartphone. So give it a look, because the next couple of nights it should look great. Technically visible into next week, but when you see my forecast, you're going to understand why you probably need to go see it here the next couple of nights, because it won't be, it'll be cloudy basically next week. Here's the bad news. On Thursdays, Tim and I talked about this. This is not a shock. We're in severe drought in the Charlotte metro. That includes most of York, Chester, Lancaster, Union, and southern Mecklenburg County. Most of Mecklenburg County north is in a moderate drought, and everybody else is abnormally dry. So there's 3 levels of drought in our area, and we're basically in all 3 of those right now. So that's the bad news. We expected it to get worse. That severe drought is pretty significant. But here's the good news. 5-day rainfall forecast, right? Look at all that rain. Now, that doesn't happen tomorrow, doesn't happen Saturday, doesn't happen Sunday. happens Monday, Tuesday. Look at those rain chances really start to ramp up as we go into early next week. And it could be several days of rain, which is exactly the kind of rain you want when you're in a drought. So what is this going to look like? Storm number 1 is coming from the southwest. So Monday, pretty soggy Monday. It's going to feel like a Monday. Lots of rain around, chilly in the mid 50s with rain. This will linger into Tuesday. We're going to see lighter rain, though, Tuesday into Wednesday. So the good news there, Charlotte FC home playoff game Tuesday, it's going to be wet, but probably not downpours, probably kind of misty, drizzly, but cold. Cold and wet is always kind of interesting. And then by Wednesday night into Thursday, I expect it to clear out, and that will set the stage for great weather for trick-or-treating on Halloween. So here's a kind of what's going to happen. When? Next Monday through Thursday, the impacts, chilly and wet commutes. That's the big story. Rain in the commute around here, it's just might as well snow sometimes, I think, with the drivers we have in our area. So wipers on, lights on, remember that. And just keep the rain gear handy and the jacket, probably an insulated rain jacket, because it'll be a chilly rain, as you'll see in the forecast coming up here momentarily. How much rain are we talking about? This is a great sign for the drought. 7-day rainfall forecast varies from about 1.5 inches to as high as 3 inches. And that's going to be stretched out over 3 or 4 days, so that's good. That's not a flood potential. That's not severe. That's exactly what you want in a drought. You don't want it all at once. You want a nice steady rain over several days. And right now, it looks like we're going to get that. Quick update on Melissa. We'll talk a lot about this with Tim here in a minute. But man, Jamaica, I had a viewer reach out there in Jamaica. They're leaving tomorrow. They're going to be fine. I said, as long as you get out before Friday. I would not want to be in Jamaica this weekend or early next week, because that's a category 3-4 storm that could be over parts of Jamaica for 3 or 4 days. That's a disaster waiting to happen. The aches and pains forecast, we bring this out every year when the pressure starts falling with these big low pressure systems. Notice next week with that low, the pressure dips. So if you have arthritis or an injury, you're going to start to feel it. The weekend forecast is great, though. This weekend, partly cloudy on Sunday, sunny on Saturday, 30s and 40s for lows, afternoon highs in the 60s. So kind of a true late October fall weekend. But when we look at your Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day, we'll focus on this. Look at the cool down into next week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Highs in the 50s to low 60s with rain. That is going to be kind of miserable, but for a drought, that's like sight for sore eyes. That's exactly what we need right now. And I'll show you the 10-day forecast just so we can reveal Halloween. Hopefully this doesn't linger, because it should be gone by Thursday, late in the day, giving us better weather for Halloween next week. Okay, so coming up, Tim Buckley's going to join me, hopefully, from WFMY. It might just be me. We'll find out in a minute. But we're going to talk about Melissa more. We'll talk about the comet, the drought, and obviously the cold air that's over us and the frost and freeze potential the next couple of nights. Stick around right after the break. All right, welcome back. Tim Buckley joins me as always from WFMY. We thought maybe we weren't going to have you for a second, but we just switched you out there, Tim. How you doing on this Thursday evening?
Doing well. We are weather helpers here. We are technology helpers here. Fixed it. Unplugging and plugging in. If you ever have not had that experience, you've not worked enough with technology. It always works.
I'm a tech person. I always, when I have to call support or IT, I'm like, can we skip to step 7? I've already done all the step 1 through 6, because that's always the first one, right? Did you start it, restart it? Did you unplug it, plug it back in?
Right. Power cycle, baby.
Yeah, that's the first one. So, Tim, we've got frost and freeze advisories tonight, but I don't know about you, but we had quite a bit of frost in our area last night. The temps really bottomed out in a few of the rural areas, and so I woke up this morning and saw some of the lows and had a lot of comments in my social media about, hey, we had frost this morning. So I think that dry air kind of caught people off guard. We radiated down pretty quickly last night.
It really did. You know, we had our coldest morning of the season up here. Pretty much everybody was in the 30s. And like you said, when I'm posting these frost advisories for tonight, that was the main comment was, well, you know, I had it last night too. So I guess we're going to keep this a trend, and we'll probably see that not just for tonight, but also for tomorrow night.
Yes.
Just keep this in mind. This is kind of what we're leading into, and it is kind of on schedule. Right?
Yep.
For this time of year to have this sort of thing, nothing out of the ordinary at all. Our average lows are pretty close. You know, our average low is 45, so it's normal to have 30s popping up every now and then.
Yeah, that was a comment I got too. A lot of people say, oh, it's early frost. I was like, actually, no, this is pretty much right on time. And in some northern counties for us, it's a little bit behind schedule. So I think people forget it's October 23rd. It's kind of that time. We should start to see some of the first frost or freeze conditions. So what are you going for lows tonight? I briefly saw you had your lows there. You're going mainly mid to upper 30s tonight, I take it?
Yeah, I think we'll probably have some spots getting as cold as 33, 34 in like the typically colder outlying areas. But we're really stubborn in the cities, just like you guys. I mean, I think like 38 or 37 for the Winston-Salems and the Greensboros and the Burlingtons. But it's always interesting. I know you probably have these little idiosyncrasies where there are some sites in some towns that get a lot colder than the others. A couple for us, Reedsville's one, Siler City's one, Burlington's another. They tend to be quite a bit cooler, and that can be a local thing with valleys, riverbeds, whatever the case might be, with locally colder air kind of collecting in an area.
Yeah, one of those for us down this way is like out towards Albemarle, which is kind of on the edge. I know you sometimes show the temperature, which you have there. Mm-hmm. That's kind of one of those spots that sometimes will get a randomly cold. And believe it or not, Charlotte's airport is a weird one too, Tim. The airport, while it's at the airport, it's not exactly near our downtown or uptown area, we call it. And sometimes it has a weird thing. When I first moved to Charlotte, it sat in a little drainage ditch out at the airport where the ASOS was. So that little cold air drainage right around sunrise, you get it in between 2 or 3 degree drop, and we'd get this random really cold low at the airport. So sometimes even Charlotte's airport will do that right around sunrise, which is always interesting. And you're right, there's always those weird spots where they're kind of cold air drainage set up where the cold air settles in right around sunrise, and boom, you'll get like a 2 degree drop, and then the sun comes up.
Yeah, and I thought the graphic you were showing before during your forecast was really helpful. A lot of people will question, you know, why are we having a frost advisory if you're forecasting 37 degrees? And that's a fair question to ask because in theory, right, you got to be freezing to make frozen stuff. And so what gives here? Well, it does depend on where you're measuring the air temperature and what the temperature is at the ground or on the surface or on your roof or what even material you might be talking about. But this graphic does a good job showing you how when we measure the air temperature, it's above the ground, and down in the colder areas, right there close to the grass and the deck or anything like that, the temperature could be right there 5 degrees cooler.
Yeah, I noticed I got a typo there. I got Patchy wrong. So that was, I just saw that. Yeah, it's always interesting. I like to tell people, you know, if you think about during the day, and one of my favorite classes that I took in my meteorology degree was a class called Boundary Layer Climatology, and it really focused on these small things that happen near the surface. And you learn about energy budgets, and Tim, I know you're familiar with that, but during the day, you know, we think about how the surface of a blacktop gets super hot in the sun compared to the air temperature. Well, at night, there's a reverse effect of that. The long wave radiation can cool a surface down more than the air temperature. And so that's why oftentimes you will see like the roof of your car or the roof of a house or a grassy surface that has a good exposure to the sky will be actually colder than the air temperature, because all of that exposure to a clear sky, we call it a radiation window, allows for that long wave radiation to go up. So it is kind of cool. It's just like the reverse of heat in the afternoon with the sun heating the ground. That the reverse happens at night.
Yeah, and that's something that everybody knows. Everyone knows in your brain, well, yeah, the roof of the car gets the frost first, but you might not know why. So it's kind of cool to know the why, even though we already know the what. We know that's the thing that you tend to watch for. Even the difference between the roof of your car and the glass windshield.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times my car has frost on top of it, but the windshield, I don't have to scrape it. I actually don't have to scrape my windshield all that often compared to when the frost is there on top of the car.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just that little angle shift, just a little bit not exposed to more sky ends up doing it. And if you have plants in your yard or gardens, that's why anything under like a tree or close to the house will stay a little warmer, because the house and the tree is shielding it from the view of the sky. So we had the drought monitor come out today, Tim, and you guys, I think, were kind of similar. But for us down here, we actually had a little bit of I wouldn't say it's a surprise, but we had a lot of our southern metro now in severe drought. Which was a pretty big upgrade, and I'm assuming a lot of this had to do with agricultural stuff. But yeah, that little section you see on the map down there around Charlotte into Union County, North Carolina, Lancaster, Chester, and York, and not unexpected that we'd see a little expansion here. I think everybody's either abnormally dry, severe, or moderate drought, but pretty bad sign on this Thursday that we're drier than we were last week, but it wasn't really a shock, Tim.
Not a shock, but I was surprised too, because wasn't that a 2-category upgrade for those counties?
A few of them there were, because there was a narrow area of moderate. And so that's why I think there was some indicator down there. I'm wondering if there was, and I'd have to check with some of the local water boards down there, if there's, because one of the things that will trigger a big upgrade like that is water restrictions, right? If a town or somebody does water restrictions.
Sure.
Or if there's a big report, because we are in the harvest season, especially for hay, if there was some kind of agricultural flag that went off down there. But yeah, that was a pretty big jump. Severe drought, it's been a while since we've had severe drought in our metro. And a lot of it might be stream flows as well. I said today that was kind of the bad news, Tim, that, we've got this, increase in the drought monitor. But the good news is next week, right, we've got this pretty interesting setup where we're going to get rain, and it's not just rain for a day. It's almost the perfect thing you need in a drought is a persistent rainy pattern for several days where it's not a tropical downpour, but it's a steady, light, moderate rain. And that setup next week is looking pretty interesting, with maybe a coastal low and several days of rain.
There's still a lot of uncertainty in the when and the how much, and all of those finer details I think we still need to work out. But compared to yesterday or the day before, don't you think that we've kind of eliminated a lot of the uncertainty of, is it going to rain? At this point, it looks like it's going to rain. It's just a question of how much, what days are the wettest, what days aren't quite so wet, and maybe how many storms do you get? Because what we're following in the models, as you're showing here, is some of them have multiple storms. A couple others maybe only have one. But it seems like, the first one, Monday into Tuesday, that's becoming quite a bit more likely for us. And then the question marks would be, do you get another one in the end of the week?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that we're wavering on down here too, is like, how quickly do you dry things out? Is it Wednesday or is it Thursday? Because Halloween looks fine. Mm-hmm. I think the fascinating thing about this is it's a little bit of a wedge setup. We've got high pressure to north leading into this, so everyone's going to talk about another probably coastal low nor'easter. Probably regardless of what happens on the coast, there's enough of a wedge that we can lift some moisture getting thrown back inland and at least create light rain for a couple days with the wedge alone. But it will be interesting to see how cold it is. I'm going mid-50s with rain, which is a pretty miserable setup, but not unheard of late October, early November. And as miserable as it is, it's exactly what we kind of need in a drought.
I'm mid 50s right now too, and I kind of know in my gut and in my conscience that that's probably too high. It's
Yeah.
probably needs to drop a little bit if it's going to rain and we're going to have that wedge in place. And just a refresher, that's high pressure to the north, sending cold air down the coast. Typically, we end up forecasting too warm on those days, so it's entirely possible. I wouldn't shock me if someone stays 48 degrees near the Virginia border with rain most of the day on Monday. That's totally possible.
Yeah, that seems to always be the case, when we get the wedge. And that's one of the difficult things about forecasting it is it's usually stronger than you think and it lasts longer than you think. That's the two things that usually always catch you
That's
off
right.
guard with that. So next week will be interesting. I've been looking at the 7-day rainfall forecast, which, looks pretty promising from the Weather Prediction Center. I think most of our areas in that, like, 1.5 to 3 inch range, which seems like a pretty good range. I think everybody could end up with an inch, especially if it's a multi-day event at the minimum. And that's exactly what we need, Tim, next week is to get a good soaker. So it's kind of like the perfect setup, not a flash flood or, severe risk, but maybe just a miserable rain that falls over a couple days.
Yeah, and we will need to remind ourselves this is a good thing. This is a good thing because you're going to be living through some clouds. You're going to be living through cold air.
Yeah.
And we've actually been spoiled with really nice, pleasant weather for a long time.
Yes.
And it's going to be a shock to the system. And you think it's getting dark early right now. Wait till it's an overcast, rainy day. It's going to
Yes.
really be dark by around 6 o'clock next week for sure.
Yeah, and I pointed out, make sure lights on, wipers on next week because it'll definitely be needed. Anytime those wipers are on, make sure your headlights are on. Now, this also gives us reason to talk about the comet because technically, Comet Lemon is going to be visible through next week. But Tim, because of what's coming in next week, you probably need to go out the next couple of nights and get your views because by the time we get to probably
Sure.
Sunday, maybe even Saturday, clouds are going to become an issue, and by next week you might have lost your chance to see it. So the next couple of nights might be your best view. And what I've noticed with the way this is moving, it's getting more west in the sky with time. So you got to look farther west from the Big Dipper. And I don't know if Jeb can bring up my laptop here, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the software I use, and this is totally free. You can get this for your phone too. It's Stellarium. That's a current view of our sky in Charlotte. On that little dot in the middle, that's where the comet is right now. And you can see the Big Dipper is off to the east here. There's the Big Dipper. And it's almost due west, Tim. So
It's
west
farther.
is right there. So it's kind of right there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go through time here, which is kind of a cool feature. I can go a little bit quicker, and I'll go past sunset here. And you can see as it gets darker, it gets lower in the horizon, but that's kind of where it is tonight. And we're going to do something cool here. I'm going to bring up the time. We'll move this up. So that's where it is right now. I'm going to move it to tomorrow to show you where it goes about the same time. See how it shifts to the west a little bit more? That's the 24th. That's the 25th. That's the 26th. So it actually gets a little higher, but it starts moving more in the western sky. So almost due west on the 26th, which by then it might be too cloudy by then, but I'll back it up here just to show you for tomorrow. So yeah, the next couple of nights are going to be pretty ideal, and I'll show you what it looked like last night from my house. That was the view I got in my backyard. That's like I think
Beautiful.
a 15 picture stack at 15-second exposures came out pretty good. And I know you got some great images from up in your area that looked pretty cool as well. Some viewers sent them in. It is really cool, some of the images we're getting, Tim. We have some very talented astrophotographers in our area.
Oh yeah, and it's just kind of interesting, maybe you could comment on this, Brett.
Yeah.
Some of them are having a little bit of a color to them.
Yeah.
Is that something of a fragment of the photography or in the edits, or is there anything natural about that? This is a photo I got up from the Pilot Mountain area.
Yeah, so it definitely the nucleus, the center of the comet, it is green in color in reality. So it just depends on what kind of filtering your stuff you're using, because sometimes, like, I'm using an astrofilter on my telescope, which is it's to help filter out some of the light pollution, and sometimes you lose the color that way. When you see the green, I think that's usually somebody's using a DSLR, a nice camera attached to a telescope, and so they're getting the real color. So yeah, that is so cool. So that's Pilot Mountain right there.
Isn't that neat?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's always neat to see these views, especially at nighttime.
Yeah. I'm trying to get a picture of the Milky Way at some point. That's my goal, is to try to use my telescope with the wide angle and get the Milky Way down here. That would be amazing. We're almost out of time, Tim, and I know the comment's great. We're going to get out there, but I want to talk about Melissa because Melissa's not going to directly impact us, Tim, but you're looking at the same things I'm looking at. This is a real concern for Jamaica, just looking at this track and the intensity model.
It really is. And, there's still so many questions to answer with short-term uncertainty with this storm that, gosh, if this thing was sitting right off our coast right now, we'd really be pulling our hair out to figure out the certainties of where is it going to hit, how, because this thing has directional uncertainty with how is it going to drift. It has intensity uncertainty with how strong is it going to get and how quickly. But the time is running short. So kind of what I've been telling people, if you have friends or family that are on vacation in Jamaica now or planning to go there, tell them to get out because this is not something you want to play with. This thing could put down feet of rainfall, whether it's Jamaica or Haiti or Cuba. Any of those areas have a risk of that. But on top of that, the current forecast still calls for it to become a Category 4 hurricane. Now, whether it does or not, there's uncertainty there, but there's a lot of potential in that warm water.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the Hurricane Center basically has it hugging the Jamaican coast for like 3 days as a Category 3 or 4 hurricane, which is just, look at that. That is a disaster for Jamaica. And you're right about leaving. I had somebody reach out to me. They were in Jamaica, actually, at Negril, and they're leaving tomorrow. And I said, if you get out by Friday, you're fine, but don't stay past Friday, because the other thing about in foreign countries, we take for granted in the United States, it's a lot harder to move around and a lot harder to get flights in some of these areas than it is here. So there's limited access to that. So you almost have to plan days ahead of time you would normally plan in the United States. And then long term, Tim, I'm going to quickly just talk about the long term forecast. Bring up my laptop, Jeb. This is the I love this. This is Tomer Berg. He's a great meteorologist. He does this grand ensemble. So this takes all of the ensembles. There's 5 of the regular ensembles and then 4 of the AI ensembles. So I think he said there's, I'm going to say over 1,000 ensemble members in this run. So it shows everything. And there's definitely this churn to the northeast. And I know everyone on the East Coast sees this, and I'm this is one of those things I don't want to let our guard down, but there's pretty strong consensus this is going to stay offshore, Tim, and mainly for the same reasons we've been talking about, that trough and storm system. But you just never know when you get a front or something on the East Coast that it could tug it back west a little bit.
Very, very low threat for us. I think of New England, you might want to watch a little more carefully, but you have plenty of time. No need to stress right now.
Yeah, so certainly something we'll keep an eye on, but no threat right now. Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Stick around. We've got tons of breaking news here in the Charlotte area coming up on WCNC Plus, so stick around.